Okay, so today we are really happy to have Dylan van der Bosch here. And I got very curious about Dylan because I found out that Dylan works from JBay for a company that does something very, very interesting. And of course, living in JBay, we're next to the ocean. The ocean is a big part of our lives. And Dylan works for, I think, what you would call a blue economy tech company. Dylan's also done something very interesting, which he's going to tell us about. And we're going to share it with you afterwards so that you can yourself learn how to do basic coding on Google Sheets. And so, yeah, the conversation is going to start with a little bit about Dylan, and then we're going to go into the tool that he's created. Without further ado, I'm going to start. Dylan, tell us about the company that you work for.
Okay. Yeah, I work for a company called Stratum 5, which they call it, it's a maritime informatics company. So to do with the digital movement of all industries, that kind of thing. They're aiming to be sort of the default for vessel companies. So if you think of it's not so much just for the management of an individual ship. Think of any industry, there's all the laws and rules and then sensors and security things and whatever. So they want to be a one-stop shop and the default for maritime informatics, or all the information that a company that owns many vessels would use to run the whole show.
So as a dummy who knows nothing about this, can you give me an example? If I'm a ship owner and I buy your software, what does that allow me to do?
It's in two main parts. So Podium is what you'd operate from the land to manage your ships. And then for your ships too, they've got a daily thing, a noon report that comes from 1800s that they always did it at noon or whatever. But that carries on, you know, how businesses or industries can be that way. So there's a snapshot is a software that the ships use that's much more pared down and is able to work for quite long periods offline, so that they can still carry on doing what they need to do. And when they're online, it talks back to the online system. And then on the online system, they want to analyze, it depends what sensors the ship has and the different APIs around the world. They can tell wear on the engine. They can do sums like taking away the effect of the currents and this and that. Did they ride that ship efficiently? And so on. So they can minus weather from their calculations and things like that.
So basically it's to check, to keep an eye on the efficiency of the vessels.
That and safety. They've got systems for like SSAS is when you get your piracy alerts and piracy incidents. And what's interesting there is when you look at it and you look at the last month, there's been like 10 actual pirate things. So there's a lot that happens out in the ocean that's not always obvious to everyone, but yeah.
Okay. Now, I understand you're a programmer. Can you tell us more about what kind of programming you do at the company?
So I'm a front-end developer, which main focus on JavaScript, but we do our work in TypeScript, but never mind about that, it's very JavaScript-ish. JavaScript is like, those of you that are programmers here might disagree or whatever, but it is the most user-friendly programming language to start off with. That's why I started off with it. And they talk about JavaScript eating the world, because anything you could do in another language, you could also do with a bit of tweaks and jumps with JavaScript. So it's a great starting language. Front-end development means focusing more on the UI and the stuff that you actually see, less on the servers. After a while, you get to know both quite well, but the bigger the company, the more they slice you up into smaller pieces. So people tend to focus one team on the front end, another team on the back end. We've got 4 devs on the front end, and I think something like 6 or 8 on the back end. And there's always a churn in development, so people come and go quite a bit.
Okay, something that struck me earlier, I was amazed. You said that you had only been seriously programming for about 5 years?
Yes, yeah.
Which is amazing.
A lifelong programmer or anything, and I'm not a genius either. It can be done if you pick it up and you've got that sort of enthusiasm. You can learn quite a lot in about 5 years.
can you tell us, walk us through basically sort of how you, at a very high level, how you started, what tools you started learning with? Did you go to school? Did you do it online, teach yourself?
Well, on the intense,
how did you get into it?
On the intense learning, all of it online, starting with YouTube videos of solving specific problems. I had a particular machine I was trying to make, so that helped to keep me focused. So I was always finding the shortest route and the often very wrong route to just get on the screen what I needed on the screen and just make it do what I needed to do. And so I was cherry picking, and often in some ways I did things the wrong way around. For example, I started with Vue.js even before JavaScript. Point being that even if you pick up where you are and you do it in a chaotic way, eventually you'll get a good foundation and be able to carry on and get it into your fingers, so to speak.
Okay, and so you're here, I mean, at least myself and probably a number of other folk here are interested in how do we start coding? We know it sounds interesting. I have no idea where to start.
Right.
You've suggested that Google Sheets.
It's one really good avenue. If you come from if you've been making websites without coding with that's the other path that people come in via WordPress or Joomla, then you'll start getting more of a taste of coding, and you might come in that way. But for those of you that are already familiar and comfortable working with Sheets, or often many programmers started off as the Excel guy at the office or whatever. So if you're comfortable with Sheets, then it's a really nice way to, with minimal code, start doing very impressive things with your Sheets. And then that might plant different seeds. You know, it can become quite a rabbit hole, and you don't know where you might end up in a couple of years' time with the foundation of some program.
Okay, so Dylan has been really kind to, he's prepared a 30-minute tutorial online, which we can watch on Loom. I've already watched it, and it's fascinating. As somebody who uses Google Sheets quite a bit, I was amazed how simple it is to actually manipulate a lot of data quite easily. Yeah. But to get us excited about it, can you maybe give us some examples, or an example of kind of practical things that we can use basic programming in Google Sheets to do?
Sure, I'll use the sort of the keystone example from that sheet, and you guys can look at it, and you'll have the sheet itself, so you can copy and paste things depending how much you can either learn nothing and just use it, or you can, you know, look further or whatever. So very similar to what you get when you interact with Google Maps online, this time just in your own sheet, is if you start, or you type an address roughly, and when you hit the tab or the enter, it'll do that normal Google Maps thing of giving a formal address, the latitude, the longitude, and then from there, you know, when you've got rows, you can tell the distance between any 2 points if you were driving. So that's the one table that's in the mix there. And you'll see when you look at the app script portion of it, which is right there in that same sheet, it's just one of the buttons that you can push. You'll see that to execute that was about 7-8 lines of code with some comments in between. So they've made it that easy. For example, there's no need to import different libraries. Well, you can if you want to, but think of much of the Google universe is available with quite a simple API. So in this case, it was maps.do what I want to do. This is what you need to know. Give me what I want type things. So yeah, they've made it quite easy to do some impressive things.
And when you get stuck with this coding, how do you go about solving it? Where do you look?
Google.
Google.
There's all kinds of jokes. Those of you who've touched a little bit with programming world, there's, you know, the guy at his university graduation. There's one of the sites you'll end up at a lot when you're Googling is Stack Overflow. So the guy's basically saying, I want to thank Stack Overflow for my degree, because a lot of what we're doing is just bumping into things and Googling an error message or whatever. And that's how everyone does it. So it's not wrong.
Yeah. I was really curious that actually one of the reasons you made the Loom was to give other people in your business, if I understand correctly, other people in the company an opportunity to learn a little bit about what you do.
That's it. Yeah.
Is that the main objective behind the Loom?
Well, that's what I did a different Loom for our company. So it started with where we do monthly Looms to update what we've been busy with and all that sort of thing. So I did this as a way to start. We're a tech company that started off as actually a weather predicting crowd for the maritime or whatever. So there's a lot of the staff have got nothing to do with programming, weather programming wing. And I found, as weird, or how you say, esoteric almost as programming can be, I find a lot of developers make it even more weird than it has to be. So rather what I've sort of brought into the mix is share where the piece of code is. You'll be surprised that often the product manager or whatever, you'll actually get that little bit and you'll know why you've had a problem and that sort of thing. So to not hide these things and share it with the company.
So you're quite interesting for us because here you are, we're sitting in Jeffreys Bay and you are working for this global company as a programmer. How is it working for a global company from Jeffreys Bay? What are the good parts? What are the challenges?
Sure. The challenges have mostly been overcome, I feel. The other side of it is that because I was doing freelancing before that and I've done a lot of solo projects, so I'm very used to working from home. So I like the idea I can have a pot cooking on the stove and do something or whatever. So the remote work just came naturally to me when COVID hit and all that sort of stuff. But Jeffreys Bay in particular, a nice place to live. I think you guys are going to get an influx of remote workers now that the world has become more remote work orientated and that. Restaurants per capita is ridiculous. So much food, I think. This is a Jeffreys Bay thing.
Okay, and so I'll mention we're going to post the Loom. What can people expect to walk away with after, or what would you like them to walk away with after they watch the Loom? It's about 30 minutes.
At the very least, you could copy-paste some of the pieces I've got, this string interpolation, the capitalizing, ways of making, when people input slightly different stuff, you can make it have the same output on the other side. So that could be very copy and paste across. But if you want to climb a little deeper and follow along the video and do a bit of your own Googling, then hopefully it'll plant a seed to at least becoming a bit of a Google Sheet superstar in your office or whatever.
That's awesome. Great. I'm going to open the floor for some questions, but thanks very much already, Dylan.
Cool.
Yeah.
Not a hell of a lot, but it's an easy transition from this point of the sheet that I'll share with you to that. So at the moment it's the app script attached to the sheet, and then if you want to turn that into an app, then it just more or less would mean you've now made your functions available as an add-on as opposed to always copying and pasting it next to it. So that'll be the next step. And then there's guys who use sheets, but more often Airtable as the database of a pretty front-end HTML app. Just because it was very fortunate for me. Time is so ripe. The languages are easier to understand. The tools are. Let me backtrack a moment. When I was a kid, me and my brother tried to program something, a game in BASIC, just reading and typing, and that was such a terrible experience that I took way too long to come back to it. And when I did come back to it, it was like, wow, they've made it really easy now. So the time is ripe for it. There's great opportunity in it, and I think the mold has been cracked as well. There isn't a programming type of person. People are coming in via art, via being the tables guy. There's 1,000 avenues in, but it's like this it's like a new literacy that if you have it, it's going to help you whatever job you do. I'm probably just going to tell them similar to what I've done, which isn't necessarily right. But I think that to climb in at front end is easier than climbing in at back end. And part of the passion that I have is, and I think of it sometimes in terms of, like, say, the old story of the township guy who's running to do a boxing thing because he's going to get out of the township like that. I think temporarily, eventually things might get like more rigid. But for the time being, if you can show impressive stuff and you've made 10 interesting things, that can be as good as a degree, you know? So for that young guy, I would say, yes, I would suggest front end, suggest JavaScript, and I'd suggest Vue.js, but there's a whole thing about Vue.js versus React or whatever. But
what is Vue.js?
Vue.js is like the front-end framework that I use.
Okay.
And then there's the other two main ones is React and Angular. So, but they're all muchless. Be that as it may, then let that person create lots of cool things in whatever their interest is. Like one of the reasons why I got in with Stratum 5 besides huge luck, is I'd done quite a few mappy things because I was interested in mappy things, and so they could see, this guy's, even with I use different tools to what they use, but they're like, this guy's into maps and he can program, let's give him a chance. And so likewise, let that person take their programming, follow their own interests with it, and they'll probably find a company who needs what they do, especially because now we can look to the global. I got my job through Vue Jobs, which is an international job site, and I failed a few other interviews, but there was like the third one, and I was in. So if they've got that skill, they can, and they're a bit focused on where they look. They're always looking globally instead of having to just find that one job in town. Yes, so I'd say it's not either or, it's both, but what will happen is if you've done 10 tutorials and you feel like, hey, I'm a superstar, just try and make something yourself, and then it's as if you've forgotten all that stuff that you learned before, and then you're back to either Googling or looking at your old course work or whatever. But you're quite right, they're very different, and yet they both have a place, I would say. But you're right, yeah, and it does help if you've got some passion project, because then that gives you the oomph you need. I don't know if you guys have seen when you learn to play guitar or anything, there's the thing they call the valley of depression, whatever. It's where you just don't feel like anything's, and you know, it's barrier after barrier. Okay. But they say that if you just keep on with it, eventually the things start to connect. Yeah. It's all good. It's coming, and it'll have its place, and it's going to be for some people where they stand still, and for others they'll bump into the limits of that and then want to take it further. It's interesting times, though. Absolutely.
The question there was no code versus code. Yeah. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of no-code platforms coming out that you can build an app without having to program, which is a bit like previously what I did was building websites without coding with Joomla or WordPress.
Amazing, that was awesome. Thanks so much, Dylan,
cool.
for sharing your enthusiasm.